All right, Clark Lee, we have the opportunity to build and place this program where it belongs. And in doing that, we get to experience and grow together.
Pretty pretty spot on for this weekend.
Yeah, that works out. I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Glow sticks in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
Did you see the troll job that the production team did at the end of the game?
In regards of who? Just like everything
Saban.
with Saban? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I guess it was like 2 weeks ago. He was on McAfee. Said the only place in the SEC that's not hard to play is Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And they played that clip on loop at the end of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the message guy or the video board guy had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Dude, what an unbelievable game.
Yeah, and like it was one of those things where at halftime it was a 12-point game or some obscure number, like not normal like separation. And I was like, oh, it's a good showing for Vandy. Like that, this is a big step in the right direction. Bama probably wins this by 10, but this is a step in the right direction. And then like you just kind of keep your eye on it as you're like surfing channels between games and grading our stuff, watching our film. And then it's the fourth quarter and Bama drives down and scores. And, it's 40-35 and there's a couple minutes left. And you're like, okay, this thing's real. Like this deserves all of our attention. And, just such a huge win, like unreal for that program, for him. Because haven't you said before, like, isn't he a Vandy guy?
Yeah, he's a Vanderbilt guy. What I find interesting was my first year there, we played Ole Miss at home. And I can't remember if we were up or we had won or were about to win the middle 8, the last 4 minutes of the first and the first of the second half. Regardless, it was like a big thing for us, obviously, especially in 21. And we go into halftime, and everybody, you could feel the energy, whenever you're playing a team that you probably shouldn't be beating, and you're beating them. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is happening right now. And you're trying to do what you normally do at halftime on a regular emotional platform, and you just feel so excited. And then we come out, and then we got our butts kicked in the second half. And I just remember Coach Lee talking about the lack of maturity of that team, not winning before. And that was a moment to where, yeah, we took a step forward, but that was a moment of a loss where, like, man, we need to learn how to, like, lose in this regard so we can actually win moving forward. So when they're going into halftime against Bama, I was like, okay, this is like 21 all over again. How has he changed this program, from a developmental perspective with the kids that's come in, new quarterback, new coaching staff, and you see that Bama comes out, and really the first drive, it's like boom, 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 boom. It's very easy for the immature team to be like, oh no, this is just old Vandy again. And then they come out, boom, and they respond. It was like, let's go. Like this is a new era for Clark Lee. What he has done and his vision for the program is truly coming into fruition. And people can say it's like, well, no, it was a trap game and this and that. You look at the stats, they outplayed them in every facet there was. They out-physicaled them, and you can say it's triple option football, but at the end of the day, they played a very clean game. And that was something I think that Clark Lee, kudos to him. I mean, he's done everything the right way. He's had a tangible vision for the program and what he wants his program to have. And because of that, all this is coming into fruition, and he's doing a hell of a job. So I couldn't be more happy for the guy and for the program.
Yeah, it's we talked about this at the beginning of the year. I think it was after their week 1 win. It's like, that style of offense, it's pretty ballsy because like your quarterback's, he's out there and it's SEC and, those guys are big and fast, but I mean, they have been fully committed to that change. And I mean, they're really good at it. I think it's impossible to deny that. And I do love the fact of, that New Mexico State connection and obviously your connection there and like Cliff being on last week. It's like, it's cool to see it come like kind of a mini full circle for all of those guys. So
It's interesting.
That mental part that you're talking about, that's very similar to the hurdle that we had to overcome this past week. So opened up district play this week with a team that we really felt like we should have beat last year. Went into halftime with a 20-6 lead. Finished the first quarter with a 20-6 lead. Lost 26-20. Had some crazy things happen at the end of that game. Obviously didn't score any points in the second, third, or fourth quarter, which is never great. Turned the ball over on downs twice inside the 15. Their 15. And got 0 points out of both trips. It's, things like that. Then you look at, late in the game, we gave up like a 4th and 25 for an 85-yard touchdown that tied it, and then still had a chance to go win the game, but threw an interception and they marched down the field and scored to seal it. Kind of the same demons that you're talking about with that middle 8 from 21. We came in at halftime with a 7-point lead, and our kids were talking like, not talking, but there was just this apprehensibility of like, I don't know if we could do this. Mm-hmm. We're winning right now, but like, I don't know if we can finish the job. And like you said, you try and like make you treat your halftime routine similar. You make your adjustments, you talk through stuff. But really for me, it was more of, it's not scheme. It's not like, guys, we talked about this. Like this is a foregone conclusion. You have to go out there and play knowing that we will win the game. Because if you play any other way, we won't.
Right.
And defense came out, 3 and out. Offense goes down and scores. Defense forces another 3 and out. Offense goes down and scores. And just like that, now you've turned a 1-possession lead into a 3-possession lead. And we probably pulled up, let off the gas a little early in the fourth quarter and got a little lackadaisical. But, with a 2-possession lead and 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, we run the ball 60 yards and we kneel out the clock inside the 5, which is something that we just flat out weren't capable of doing last year. And I think a ton of it has to do with, I know Coach Lee's been at Vandy a little bit longer, but I think a ton of it has to do with, if you don't have, and we've talked about little pieces of this before, but if you don't have a process, if you're just out there practicing or you're just out there lifting, if you don't have a process and like checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, short-term goal, long-term goal, if you don't have any sort of plan to go and put in action through your process, those type of things don't happen. And the identifiers, like what Coach Lee talked about, the identifiers of like, this is the mark of an immature team and this is the thing that we need to overcome, is part 1. Because then you got to go into the offseason and you have to address that specifically. And if you can't do that, you're probably not going to overcome that hurdle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, I think there's one thing, that I learned being with Coach Lee and then opposed to other places, or, similar to Coach Lee at other places, is like, you have got to have, like, what is your program? You need to have something tangible. There's an overarching thing that you as a head coach, here is my program. And to be more specific about it, here is my transformational program that I'm going to have, that no matter what kid comes in, this is a user experience that they're going to get. And then, if we get really good kids, that makes it even better. But a lot of programs will do the flip side, and there really is no plan. It's, hey, I'm the coach. We got to get some kids. If we get some kids, they're going to be really good. Well, now you're relying on kids to make you a really good program. And it's like, what you should be able to have, no matter what, is a kid be able to exit your program, come back, and be like, oh my gosh, there was a master plan this entire time. There were micro adjustments that we had to make accordingly to what was going on within the program, but there was an overarching plan that dude had the entire time. And I think a lot of coaches struggle with that, because you kind of get more into of what's going on right now. Here's what I need now. Here's what I need now. And you always got to be able to step back and say, well, what is my process? What do I need to stick to? What do we need to adjust? But so long that you and your process are true and you stay true to it and it's disciplined and you're determined with it, you'll always end up, coming out the right way. I think a lot of young coaches struggle with that in general with just, we got to get better kids. Well, yeah, sometimes you got to get better kids. And that obviously that's, especially high school, Jimmy's and Joe's, it helps. But in regards to user experience of a program, I think it's very pivotal that you actually have a process.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, anybody that watched College Game Day, Saban throws up that, and it's, it's crazy. Like, anytime Bama does anything, it's still connected to him, right?
Yeah.
They throw up that stat, that visual, and he says, these are the years that I considered myself a transactional head coach. And, when we won, I probably took too much of the credit. And when we lost, I probably came down a little too hard on both coaches and players. And then there was this shift, and here's a clear and obvious shift, and describes it in great detail. And then look at my record. Look at what we were able to do as a staff and as a team or franchise or program, whatever it was. Look at what we were able to do after it became transformation. It became transformative and not transactional. Or I guess transformational, but it's 100%. Like, I can stand a little bit taller and kind of acknowledge that about myself as well this year compared to last year. I think last year I did what we were talking about. The X's and O's. We just got to get guys in position. Like, these pieces are here. We do this, we do that. We win games, this, that, and the other. And it's like, maybe. But if you're not doing anything to invest into the mental, emotional, and relational piece with those kids and with that team, it's really a 50-50 shot. Are they going to do it or are they going to not? Do they remember what you said? Do they care what you said?
Yes.
Or do they still blow it off and say, I'll just do it my way?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. There was a time there, this was 2 years ago, we were playing at Georgia. We were getting absolutely murdered. For anybody in life in general, in those moments, it's really hard to step back and just be present and be like, hold on, what's the most important thing right now? My point is at halftime, I remember Coach Lee came into the locker room to the coaches like he always did. And when you're getting beat that bad, I mean, I'm sure you've been there before. Every coach has been there before. It's not a good feeling, and you want to just not be there anymore. It's like, oh my gosh, it's 55-0. Can we just move on to next week? I'm embarrassed. And I remember Coach Lee was like, guys, how you coach the kids from each series right now is going to be the difference in a year or two from now when we're winning games. He's like, I don't care about the scoreboard right now. I was like, oh my gosh, that was such a pivotal moment for us, because I was like, he's so right. Like, screw the fans, screw anybody that's going to say anything, screw the kids. If they don't believe it, if they don't believe it, they should be gone next year. He's right. So after each series, whether it's a good series or bad series, I need to do a good job as an assistant coach of, okay, what just happened in that series, and how can I coach my butt off from an emotional stability, from an emotional perspective, from a schematic perspective, knowing that, is it going to win the game right now? Absolutely not. But will this coaching win us the game in a year or two? Yes, so long we stick to that process. And I think that was, for me, a big turning point in my career from a maturity perspective, because you get so caught up in the game and where you're at.
Yeah, I think it was 2018 at Salina. We had a run there from 15 to, I think 19 was the last year. No, 15 to 21, we played Argyle every year, whether it was non-district or district. And they got us more than we got them. That's for sure. In 18, we're playing our last home game at the old Salina field. They were finishing up construction on the new stadium, but that field is just oozes with Texas high school football history and lore. And it's the last high school varsity game that'll ever be played there. And they come in and, like, I don't know, the Star Spangled Banner played. I turned around and it was 42-0. Like, it was bad. Tate Wallace was the OC over there. And so, like, I'm watching essentially what I would still consider like the offense that we ran in college just torch the team that I coach. torch our kids. I'm standing next to the defense coordinator, like, hey, they're about to run DC to the Carter kid. They're about to run DC. And he's like, you think I don't know that? Our corner is at 17 yards right now, and he's still getting beat deep. I don't know what you want me to do. We ended up losing the game 69-14. And, like, I think it was more subconscious at the time just because of what the expectation was with the kids, with the staff, with the community. Never hesitated, kept coaching. That 14 points all came in the second half. And we actually got kind of on a little run towards the end. We win our first round game, like within the last minute. We upset Stephenville, who's a 17-point favorite in the second round. And third round is a rematch with Argyle. And mind you, I just told you that they beat us 69-14, like a month before. They scored 42 points in like a quarter and a half. And it would have been very easy if we had let up as coaches for the kids to kind of put their head on a swivel and not focus on the next play. It would have been very easy to be like, made the third round when nobody expected us to. Great job. Well, we come out and our defense coordinator puts together a great game plan, makes the adjustments, figures a lot out about them, shuts them down first half. And we go into halftime with like a 3 or 4 point lead. It might have been tied, I don't know. But it was either 14-10 or 13-10 or 14-all, something like that. Which is a completely different place than 42-0 at the end of the first quarter and a half. And our kids, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, never hesitated when they walked out in that game because of the investment into the process. And I think that, it's a buzzword and everybody talks about it, but it's so hard to explain the importance and the relevance and the depth of that without using examples. I don't know, maybe I'm just a bad teacher, but there's list after list after list of those examples that prove this is a process-driven business that is results oriented. And that's
Correct.
the thing that people get confused about. They think it's a results driven business. It's not. You don't get the results if you don't have a process.
Yes, 100%. That was when I first realized the importance of the process. And this is going to sound probably pretty stupid, but I've always known it's important. I've just never thought about it in detail. We were at practice my first year there at Vanderbilt, and our left tackle makes a stupid decision schematically and emotionally. And I'm standing right next to Coach Lee, and he calls over the tackle, and the tackle's like all, he's all jacked up and freaking out. No, this isn't that. And Coach Lee goes, hey, I'm not mad about what just happened. I'm just really interested in the process that led to this. Just like that, in that manner. And like the whole team basically just got into a whole fight because of that. Every coach is kind of jacked up, offense versus defense. And in that manner, Coach Lee was genuinely, hey, I'm just curious in the process. And I saw it make the kid sit there, and he was kind of dumbfounded, like, well, let me think about my process real quick. And if you do that with everything you do, you realize all those decisions that you make, like they're all made because of some type of process in your life. And in order for you to make better decisions, because every decision, it's a momentary decision for a lifetime consequence. And if you can look at it that way and know that, okay, everything I do is based on the process of what I'm doing on my day-to-day life, and the decisions are just happening now in practice. You look at it that way, you be more analytical about it. You're a lot more careful with what you choose to invest your time into.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I don't know if I have that mid practice. I think I always try and circle back to those, like, I've calmed down, you've calmed down, let's talk about it post practice.
Yeah.
But he's 100% right. You're 100% right. That's like the disarming of a kid, right? When you can de-escalate through questioning. And, they talk about like modern parenting and all of those things, which like you and Cliff talked about, they're, it doesn't matter the level. They're just older high school, they're just older kids, high school, college, they're just kids. But that de-escalation, but it's hard. It's just flat out hard because this goes back 3 years ago. Well, coach, I told him, right, cool. Apparently, however you said it didn't work or didn't stick because he didn't do it the way you said, if that's what you told him. And so you need to revisit your coaching process and your communication process, and he needs to revisit his understanding process or evaluation, implementation, whatever it needs to be. There is a disconnect here. And like I said, I know I'm not very good at it, like in that exact moment, but I do try and make a point to circle back to situations like that after the fact. Because it's like you said, I'll probably butcher this. It's a momentary decision for a lifetime of consequences. That's heavy. And I don't think that, I think it's really hard to get a kid to understand a statement like that because we as coaches in the profession and branding and marketing uses a lot of the buzzwords and like sayings. We're not teaching them about sports, teaching them about life. Shout out heavyweights. But it's, life isn't all about football, but football is all about life. I think it's really easy for those things to just in one ear and out the other because of how many different variations and versions there are. But the fact of the matter is when you sit back and you de-escalate and you disarm the situation and you ask those kind of questions, they're confronted with the idea that, okay, it's not just something that's on a graphic stuck to the wall. Like that's real.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it's one of those moments to me where I'm like, wow, because so many coaches are just so, and you should be like, you need to be able to harness emotion and use that to the betterment of coaching and to the betterment of life. But so many coaches just can't literally get out of their body, stand on the building and look at the situation that they are currently standing in and say, what's the best decision right now? They can't just take that breath for the moment and pause and be like, okay, that was just a fight, or okay, we're just getting beat 55-0. At the end of the day, I'm going to coach him just like I would have on Tuesday after that rep on Tuesday practice, whatever it may be. It's really hard to do that because emotion just gets the best of you, but yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of in 21, when I was at Salina district game, we were pretty good that year. We had a lot of seniors. We had a lot of talented kids. And we were right in the middle of the season. We had just come off of a pretty big district win with a team that had upset us the year before. And we're getting ready to play another team that I had a friend who has some coaching connections over there. And this guy is a golf coach at a big 5A in the Metroplex. And he let me know that, hey, I went over to drop off this check for a basketball tournament deposit that our guys are playing in. And these were some of the things that were said. And obviously, bulletin board material, blah, blah, blah. You relay a variation of that message to the kids just to get a little bit more gasoline on the fire, make sure that they're not going to get caught in a trap game. Well, in the middle of the game, we're winning. By the way, the piece that was left out, the coach that said these things was the defensive coordinator. So the game within the game, the chess master within the chess match, it's mano a mano in my head. We're up probably 10, 13 points. We get stopped on a bogus 4th down spot that I was, it should have been a 5-yard gain. It was only a 3-yard gain, and they only gave us 2. And so we turn it over on downs. He runs out past the numbers and starts signaling first down the other way. And I just, cool. Hey, you won that rep. Put it in the back of my mind. And defense stops him because our defense was really good that year. We go down, score. I step out, point at the scoreboard. Didn't say anything. Just pointed at the scoreboard. And I made sure that I was like, this is how petty it got. I made sure I was mirroring him, right, when I did it, like paralleled to him on the sidelines. And then we flip, go down, score, basically puts the game at 30 points. Like, it's a borderline blowout now. And I walk out a little bit farther and I go, you're not pointing anywhere now, are you? Obviously projecting it across the field. He steps out past the numbers and says, meet me at the logo after the game. Said, see you there. It's a date. So our kids I go through the line, shake hands. I turn around and I just stare at their sideline after the game, right on the logo. Their defensive line coach comes up to me and says, why don't you try and win with some class instead of acting like a kid? I said, it's funny that you're worried about class with me, but not the guy that challenged me to a fight at the 50-yard line. I don't see anybody talking to him about class. I look over his shoulder. The head coach is holding this guy back. And I'm just standing there just smiling. And so enough time has passed. He knows I'm there. Nothing happens. I think it's de-escalated. I go walk back to join the team. As I turn around, he goes, yeah, take your butt on somewhere. Obviously using more colorful language. I whip around. I said, what'd you say? He goes, you heard me? I said, no, I don't think I did, because you made sure to say it to my back, not when I was standing here facing you. So why don't you repeat yourself? And he steps towards me, and like 4 of our kids, and this is where it gets really sticky as a coach. 4 of our kids come over and they're like, bah, they're barking at him like, don't run your mouth to him, yada, yada. They're like trying to hold me back. I was like, guys, go away, go away, go away. They're like, we got your back, coach, yada, 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 all the things. And it de-escalates. Nothing really happened. He was grumpy and angry. His defense wasn't near as good as he thought they were. And, I'm feeling good about myself because I stood my ground, yada, yada. We go in. Field house is starting to clear out. Emotions come down, and I'm like, they're pretty much in our district for every sport. This is going to come up. This was probably not the best representation for the program, for the model behavior we want to show our kids. Let me just put my hat in hand and walk into the head man's office. I sit down and I lay it out exactly how I just laid it out. Tried to be as calm and monotone as possible. And he was like, yeah, I get it. Let's just make sure it doesn't happen again. And hey, you slipped, you didn't fall. Let's just make sure and keep our balance the rest of the way type thing. And in the moment, like, cause 90% of the coaching world is pure emotion, right? Mm-hmm. It is what it is. And in the moment, I felt like even when I had it was almost cemented when the kids came over and like had my back, had my support, like, oh, look how close we are, yada, yada, all these things. And then, like you said, step up, take the 10,000-foot view, the whole perspective, and you're like, oh, crap. I can't get that one back. Yeah. I can't get that one back. But the biggest thing was the fact that it ended up being a lot to do about nothing. Nothing actually came of it. It was just emotions. It was just words. And I'd never cross paths with that guy again, but if he does hear this story, he's going to know who it's about, and he's going to know that he was wrong. And I'm not saying I was right, but I was less wrong.
Of course. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right. It is all about emotion in this game. And it's cool to see people like, Big Bill or Clark Lee, if you can have the opportunity to coach under guys like that, to see this is why you're successful and this is why you're in this position, and I aspire to be this someday. Thank you for allowing me to witness your success and to witness your process. So long we take it away with us, we'll be successful.
100%. Now, I want to revisit something. We talk about this way too much, but it's the biggest story in football right now, especially since it has really started to get into the high school ranks. Yes, it's NIL, but I want to look at it from a different perspective, because this is the perspective that's pissed me off about its potential since the beginning, and it's the lack of accountability. Daquan Finn, the transfer guy, went to Baylor. I'm going to say alleged because I haven't seen specific numbers, but allegedly it was a $600,000 NIL deal to bring him in. He gets benched, injury, whatever it might be. Here's what I know. Quarterbacks, from a perspective and input standpoint, have the most when they're a guy not on the field. Your backup safety is not bringing as much to the input table as your backup quarterback, especially if your backup quarterback has legit starting playing experience. So the value should still be there from a teammate's perspective. And what frustrates me in the connection to the NIL aspect is that the rumors are he didn't even travel to their game against Iowa State. And this program, who is fighting tooth and nail to try and keep that ship going in the right direction, has a $600,000 investment into a kid who can't roll with the team. Now, maybe there's some other pieces that say he was injured, he needed to stay back for maybe all of that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I get proven wrong in that aspect. I lean more towards the confidence of that's not what happened. But for hypothetical purposes, let's just say that we know it was his choice. He said, I'm not going. To me, if we're going to pay them like professionals, we should fine them like professionals. Or there should be some sort of verbiage or wording that says, absolutely not. You are going to meet these expectations, or you will not be paid in full the amount that was declared and agreed upon.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, it's I know we've talked about this, but until there's actually an actual contract that's negotiated, understood, signed, it's universal across the board, you're going to start seeing the Matthew Sluka, Daquan Finn, if that's actually what happened, you're going to start seeing these things happen all the time because now money's the motivation, right? Like now that is everything, unfortunately, on both sides of it. And with a lack of stability of NIL, it's going to come the lack of stability within the program across the board in college. So long that the head coach doesn't have the ultimate control of that program. You know what I mean? So you're just going to keep seeing it happen because at the end of the day, you know, you're paying that's a lot of money if this is actually the case. And even if it was like the whole Sluka thing, like this is going to be a trend because the instability of the donors, the boosters throwing all this money out, it's not going to be stable from a year-to-year basis. That instability is going to trickle down in every facet in football.
Yeah, I mean, to me right now, it's professional pay for amateur behavior.
That's a great way to say
certain
it.
aspects.
Oh, it's a great way to say it.
You're going to have the kids that handle their business the way business is supposed to be handled. But I would lean towards the fact that that's probably going to be the minority, not the majority. These kids are being written checks to put in their bank account, and they're still amateurs. They're still kids. And it's
like a school. It's like a school cafeteria right now. Literally, it's like when you're back in elementary school. Hey, if I give you these 2 apples, will you give me the PB&J? And it's like until there's like one universal thing, there's going to be all these BS tradings and money here, and this is not legal, but nobody's saying anything. It's going to be just a bunch of Wild Wild West random things that's going on until there's a uniform thing across the board from NCAA that says, hey, this is the cap. Here's how you do it. This is all you can do. Here's the money, period.
But the problem is that it can't be the NCAA that says it because nobody believes them.
Right.
I think this is a great opportunity for. I definitely don't think that there should be an NCAA PA by any means. I don't think they need to unionize, but I do think that some sort of representation gets with the AFCA, with the Coaches Association, and you disregard the NCAA, which I know isn't technically probably possible. But that's where the issue is coming in, is that the NCAA is sitting there like, well, this is what y'all wanted. Yep. Here's the fruits of your labor. Like, deal with it. They don't care. They're still they're making more money now than they did 4 years ago because more people talk about it. More people watch the games. The transfers piss people off, so they want to watch the people that they hate because they left their school, and they want to watch the people they like that go to their school. So now they're watching 2 games every Saturday instead of 1. So the NCAA is all good with it.
Right.
I think that if I'm not, obviously, I probably never will be. If I'm a Division I head coach, I'm stipulating that into my collective paperwork. Like, this will not be paid lump sum. You will get a chunk as a signing bonus, and it will be paid weekly based off the obligations that are set place in your role on the team. Injuries will not withhold earnings, yada, yada, yada. But, like, if you are academically ineligible, you get diddly squat.
That's hard. I mean, yeah, I agree. The hard thing is because, okay, let's just say that's what you decide to do. Okay, and let's just say, for example, there's a big-time quarterback coming from the MAC who you want. And
don't ever say that again.
Okay.
That's the biggest oxymoron I've ever heard. No disrespect, Ben Roethlisberger.
And so he's being offered this massive lump sum from your opposing school. Say you're at Michigan, and the school down the road is offering you this much money.
Cool.
You're just gonna let him slide. You're just gonna let him slip.
I'm
just saying, devil's advocate. That's the hardest thing.
No, I get it. That's my perspective on it. If your deciding factor is getting paid one time in August versus 14 times throughout the year, like an employee's supposed to, then you're probably not right for our program anyway, and this looks like a cash grab. That tells me what I need to know about the player.
I agree.
The caveat was I'm probably not ever going to be one, so this is all fun because there's no actual repercussions of this conversation. But we touched on this with the whole DJ Ugalula thing. Like, you can't just – that's just not how it's going to work. I have to know this is another way. This is another form of discovery. Right? This is another way for me to continue to learn who you are as a person, as a player, as a teammate. And if you answer some of the questions wrong, you're probably going to make a decision that I'm okay with.
No, I get it. I guess my whole thing, and trust me, I agree with what you're saying, because I think with what you're saying, it's the principle of sustaining longevity, which should be the ultimate goal for every coach and what they're doing. Agreed. The hard thing is, it gets until your regulation. If I'm a kid, right, I'm not saying this is what I would do, but let's say I am, going through 4 SEC programs, and I'm narrowed down to my final 4, and 3 of those 4 have offered me this much money. They vary, and they're all pretty much a lump sum money, and then all of a sudden this one does not. Like, the fact of the matter is, when you're 17, 18 years old, unless you're, one of the few kids that you and I have probably, and anybody has ever coached, where it's like, man, that is a 45-year-old brain in a 17-year-old, body. Unless you have that money's going to speak. And it's like, dang it, you're going to continue to lose out on these kids because they're just, give me that $300,000 now. And again, like, this is just a small example of what all the little kind of, I should say, loopholes that are happening within football. And it's just the issue of, like, you have to decide, because I just went through it at Vanderbilt, like, I saw it happen daily. You have to decide, which battles can we lose here? And we understand the ultimate war that's happening. But which battles can we lose? And if we decide to lose this battle, is it going to cause us to lose a war or not? Because we're competing with all these other guys that are basically all in the same boat, more transaction than transformational. That's the hard thing that you kind of got to juggle, which obviously I think Clark Lee's done a good job of having the perfect balance of the seesaw right now, and hopefully he continues to do that. But, I'm not saying Lane Kiffin is doing it wrong, but I think you got Andy and I think you got Ole Miss, two complete opposite ways of going about this whole ordeal here.
Give details as to what the biggest 2 or 3 biggest differences are between them when you say that.
Yeah, I mean, I won't dive in too deep here.
No, just like,
Well, I mean, I'd say the biggest thing is, and I'm obviously biased, but transformation over transaction. That's what Clark Lee stands for. And I really can't speak on what, Coach Kiffin stands for. I don't really know the guy, so it'd be wrong for me to say that. But knowing the amount of money that they have gotten, the way of which they've gone about some of the NIL with some of the kids. It's just a different process than what Coach Lee's taken. And so I have to say, where those two different processes, there's going to be, another 8 to 9 in the SEC, even more with every different program. And when you're trying to compete, and when let's say you're a coach where it's like, man, if I don't win 6 games here, I'm fired. At what point do you have to say, okay, I'm about to latch on to transaction, or do I get fired knowing that my transformational approach will allow me to sleep good every single night after I get fired? That's the hard thing.
I don't know, man. I say this from a perspective of A, being in high school, but B, I feel like the growth in my personal professional growth, I don't even know if that makes sense, that I went through was that if you do it the transformational way, everything, it will fall the way it's supposed to fall. And the added bonus to that is you can lay your head on your pillow at night and feel good about the decisions that you made. I think that is truly, truly the case. For the longest time, Nick Saban, everybody after probably after the 2012 season, so that 2013 national championship, from then until his retirement, a lot of people just said that he was really good because they were to a point where they just got whoever they wanted. But Nick Saban was very, very clear in the expectation of anybody that came to that campus and joined that program. For the longest time, they couldn't wear armbands that weren't brought in. They couldn't show their back plate. They couldn't have, they had a hair policy. They had a no hat rule in the field house. They had those things. And the problem was nobody knew it because nobody spoke on it, right? They did such a good job on the field that everybody just talked about how much of a powerhouse they were. But we coached in a program that had a hat policy in the field house. I'm not saying the hat policy is the reason that they're winning these back-to-back national championships. What I'm saying is that Nick Saban was very abundantly clear. Here is my expectation. Here is what you're going to do. And if you do these things, are patient and invested and meet all these expectations, you will have the opportunity to do both of these things, which is graduate with a degree from the University of Alabama and pursue your lifetime goal of playing in the NFL.
Yes, I agree.
And they did. And I get it. Nick Saban, way over here. Exception, not the rule. But you can't tell me that if the GOAT could do it that way, that your way's better. Maybe if you choose to do it the transformational way and that school, that administration runs you out, maybe you weren't supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. And that's a really scary thought to try and accept. But I think it's the reality of the situation. Now you come back into those live, laugh, love posters that are in every kitchen in the South. It happened the way it was supposed to. What is meant to be will be. All of those things, But it's also really scary. And we talked about the emotions of the profession, and a lot of people can't handle or choose not to approach it that way. And I think that they suffer because of it.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of finish with this topic with this. I think the best way to go about it is you hold on to the fact that your transformational process will provide the transactional results. If you keep that in the back of your mind the entire time, from there, the next thing that you have to understand is that you can't avoid the water being NIL. You got to dip your toes in. Could be 1, could be 3, could be 5. You could throw your whole body in there, but you got to get wet a little bit. And if you can hold on to our transformational process, my transformational process as a head coach is going to lead the transactional results. If I can balance that and marry that with just dipping 4 to 5 toes in there, and that gives us, and that kind of helps boost our transaction, that's the perfect marriage. It's when you flip-flop that is when you're just in a recipe for disaster.
100%. And at the end of the day, what everybody needs to remember, especially, generational head coach Nick Saban. At the end of the day, if there's one place in the SEC that it's not hard to win, it's Vanderbilt. Right, Nick?